Professor Vexithar's scales rippled with satisfaction as he displayed the holographic image of a wolf to his xenobiology class. The creature's amber eyes seemed to stare through the assembled students, a mix of species from across the Galactic Union. "And here we see Canis lupus, the gray wolf of Earth," Vexthar announced, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into standard galactic. "A perfect example of ecological collapse caused by primitive civilizations. The humans hunted these magnificent apex predators to extinction approximately 200 Earth years ago, shortly before achieving spaceflight." Several students recorded notes on their datapads. A Thrin in the third row raised one of her 6 arms. "Professor, wasn't their extinction one of the reasons humans were initially denied Union membership?" "Indeed," Vexithar confirmed. "The wolves' extinction demonstrated humanity's poor stewardship of their own planet. It took decades of rehabilitation programs and attitude changes before they were deemed responsible enough to join our ranks." He paused dramatically. "Let this be a lesson. Once a species is gone, it is gone forever. The humans learned this truth too late." The classroom door slid open with a soft hiss. Every head turned as Sarah Chen walked in, her boots clicking against the metal floor. But it wasn't Sarah who captured everyone's attention. It was the massive gray creature walking calmly at her side, its thick fur rippling with each graceful step. Vexithar's jaw dropped open, revealing 3 rows of teeth he usually kept hidden. The datapad slipped from his claws and clattered to the floor. "Sorry I'm late, Professor," Sarah said casually, seemingly unaware of the shock radiating through the room. "Ghost needed his morning run, and it took longer than expected. The gravity settings in the park were malfunctioning again." The wolf, Ghost, sat down beside Sarah's desk. His tongue lolled out as he panted softly, looking completely at ease despite being surrounded by alien species. His eyes swept the room with an intelligence that made several students lean back in their seats. That is... Vexthar couldn't finish his sentence. "Oh, this is Ghost," Sarah said brightly, scratching behind the wolf's ears. His tail thumped against the floor. "He's my companion. Is it okay if he sits in on the lecture? He's very well behaved." "I promise." A Quellex student in the front row made a sound like escaping steam. "But wolves are extinct. The humans killed them all." Sarah's friendly expression cooled several degrees. She crossed her arms. "Excuse me?" Vexithar finally found his voice, though it came out higher than usual. "Miss Chen, the records clearly show that Canis lupus went extinct in the early 21st century. What you have brought to my class is impossible." "The records are wrong," Sarah said flatly. Ghost seemed to sense her mood shift and pressed against her leg. "Wolves were never extinct. Endangered, yes. Nearly extinct in certain regions, absolutely. But humans didn't let them disappear." She pulled out her datapad and projected her own hologram into the center of the room. Images of wolves filled the space, wolves running through snow, wolves caring for pups, wolves howling at the moon. And in many images, humans stood nearby, watching, protecting, studying. "In the late 20th century, humans realized what we were losing," Sarah explained, her voice taking on a teacher's cadence. "We established protection laws, created wildlife reserves, and launched breeding programs. We reintroduced wolves to areas where they'd been hunted out. It took decades of work, but we brought them back from the edge." Vexthar stared at the images, his scientific mind reeling. "But the Union's survey team reported them extinct. We have documentation." "Your survey team visited Earth in 2087, correct?" Sarah interrupted. When Vexithar nodded slowly, she continued. "They landed in the central continental region, toured 3 cities, and spent a total of 2 weeks on the planet before filing their report. They never visited the wilderness preserves, the national parks, or the conservation centers." She pulled up another file. "Current wolf population on Earth, approximately 425,000. That's up from a low of about 50,000 in the year 2010. They live in North America, Europe, Asia, and we've even successfully reintroduced them to regions they'd been absent from for centuries. Ghost chose that moment to yawn, displaying impressive teeth. Half the class flinched. "Why would the survey team lie?" demanded a Krillian student, his eye stalks quivering with agitation. "They didn't lie," Sarah said. "They made assumptions based on incomplete data. They saw that human population had exploded, saw evidence of historical hunting and habitat destruction, and assumed the logical conclusion. They just didn't bother to look deeper." She knelt beside Ghost, running her fingers through his thick fur. The wolf leaned into her touch, and something about the gesture made several students shift uncomfortably. There was an intimacy there, a bond that spoke of something deeper than simple coexistence. "This is what the Union doesn't understand about humans," Sarah said quietly. "Yes, we made mistakes. Yes, we hunted wolves nearly to extinction. We feared them, killed them, destroyed their habitats. But we also learned. We changed. And we refused to let them disappear." Vexathar slowly picked up his datapad, his claws trembling slightly. The implications of this: if wolves survived, what else did we get wrong about Earth? "Probably a lot," Sarah admitted. "Tigers, elephants, gorillas, pandas, sea turtles, all of them were critically endangered when you thought we'd wiped them out. All of them are still here because humans decided their survival mattered more than our convenience." She stood up, and Ghost rose with her, his shoulder reaching her hip. "You wanted to use wolves as a lesson about extinction. How about using them as a lesson about redemption instead?" Ghost suddenly perked up, his ears swiveling toward the door. A moment later, the door opened again, and Professor Kelnera, the station's administrator, floated in on her anti-gravity platform. Her crystalline body refracted the light into rainbow patterns. "Ah, Sarah," Kelnera said, her voice like wind chimes. "I received a distress call from this classroom. Something about an extinct predator?" Her many eyes focused on Ghost, and she made a sound like tinkling laughter. "Oh, good! You brought Ghost today. I've been meaning to meet him." The students stared as their administrator drifted closer to the wolf. Ghost's tail wagged slowly. "You knew?" Vexathar asked weakly. "Of course," Kelnara replied. "I approved Sarah's request to bring Ghost to the station. He's been here for 3 months. Lovely creature. He helped security track down that plasma leak last week, did you know? His sense of smell is remarkable." Sarah grinned. "He's a good boy." Ghost's tail wagged harder. Vexathar looked at his hologram, still frozen on the image of a snarling wolf he'd used to illustrate a cautionary tale. Then he looked at Ghost, sitting calmly in his classroom, tongue lolling in what almost looked like a smile. "I need to revise my entire lecture," he muttered. "You need to revise more than that," Kelnera said cheerfully. "The Galactic Union's entire database on Earth species needs updating. I've already contacted the Science Council. They're sending a proper research team to Earth, and they've requested that Sarah and Ghost accompany them as consultants." Sarah raised her eyebrows. "Really? Really? It seems we have much to learn about humanity's relationship with their planet's wildlife." Kelnara's eyes sparkled with amusement. "Apparently, humans are the only species in the Union who ever successfully restored apex predator populations after nearly destroying them. The Science Council is very interested in understanding how." A Thrin student raised her arm again. Can we pet him?" Sarah looked down at Ghost. The wolf gazed back at her with those amber eyes. And some wordless communication passed between them. "He says one at a time. And let him smell your hand first. No sudden movements." As students began to cautiously line up, Vexthar watched in amazement. Ghost greeted each one with patient dignity, allowing gentle touches while Sarah monitored closely. The massive predator that should have been extinct showed no aggression, only calm curiosity. "You know what the strangest part is?" Sarah said to Vexthar as a nervous Quellex student successfully scratched Ghost's chin. "Wolves domesticated us as much as we domesticated them. Our species grew up together. They helped us hunt. We helped them survive. We turned some of them into dogs over thousands of years, but we also learned to let the wild ones stay wild." She smiled as Ghost leaned into another student's touch. "That's very human, isn't it? We can't stand to let things go. Even when we mess up badly, we fight to fix it. We're stubborn like that." Vexthar pulled up his notes and began deleting his prepared lecture. "Miss Chen, would you be willing to give a guest lecture on Earth conservation efforts?" "Only if Ghost can co-teach," Sarah replied. The wolf's tail thumped against the floor in agreement. Professor Vexthar looked at his classroom, full of students crowded around an animal that wasn't supposed to exist, learning a lesson he hadn't planned to teach. Sometimes, he reflected, the best education came from being completely wrong. "I think that can be arranged," he said. Ghost howled softly, and for the first time in his life, Vexthar understood why humans had fought so hard to keep that sound in their world.